Anakin is arguably the main character of Star Wars, and yet most people don't even know that he got his signature scar from a Legends duel with Ventress, and also that he designed his dark robes to be somewhat lightsaber and blaster resistant. So basically the point of this video is to have a well-edited recap of the important events of his life, so you don't have to watch 3 hours worth of lore videos, while not only going over the movies but also the lesser known periods like his time as a slave, and also him being a Padawan between episodes 1 and 2. This video will mainly take from canon with facts from Legends here and there, and note that I will be making mistakes here and there as well, because I am only human, unlike Anakin. Starting at the very beginning, Anakin was conceived by the midi-chlorians and born to Shmi Skywalker, his mother, in 41.9 BBY. Some theorize Darth Plagueis to be the cause of this incident due to one of his experiments in the Force. While Anakin is stated as born on Tatooine, a holographic log states Shmi as moving there when he was of a very young age, making this his home planet. Around the age of 3, Anakin, who is called Annie as a nickname sometimes, would be sold from Gardula the Hutt to the Toydarian scrapyard owner and gambler Watto, who was very cruel to them both and won them in a pod racing bet. Anakin was a magnificent pilot and also managed to build C-3PO as a young child, who he would find pieces for here and there while helping Watto over the years to slowly but surely build a personal servant for his mother to help out in the Tatooine desert. One of these pieces was a power cell which, rather than use for his own droid, he used to restore a medical center, as Anakin as a child also had a big heart as well. His mother would tell him the legend of the Sun Dragon, which was in the middle of stars, and it could survive because it had the biggest heart of all creatures, and she would then tell Anakin that he was the Sun Dragon, to her at least. In 32 BBY, when Annie was 9 years old, he would be discovered by Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice Obi-Wan Kenobi when they traveled to Tatooine with Qui-Gon without his Padawan, as well as Padme and Amidala the Handmaiden to the Queen of Naboo, would go out into the desert to look for parts to repair the Queen's 327 Nubian Royal Star ship. When meeting with Watto to figure out how to acquire the parts needed, Padme would run into Anakin, who would confuse her for angels, the most beautiful creatures in the whole galaxy. Anakin would also make a Jippor snippet necklace for Padme, who would wear it to her death by this same being's hand. More on that later. Anakin would compete in a racing competition known as the Pod Race to win parts for Qui-Gon and the Queen, as well as his own freedom after a bet the Jedi made with Watto. Anakin had competed in multiple of these competitions before and had a pod racer that was admittedly faulty but also very fast at the same time. After 3 laps of mayhem, the majority of which being caused by Anakin's current nemesis and competitive racer Sebulba, Annie would of course win the race and be forced to sadly leave his mother behind on Tatooine. When Qui-Gon Jinn, who had requested to personally train Anakin from the Council, was killed by the Sith Lord Darth Maul, Anakin would then become the Jedi apprentice to Obi-Wan Kenobi, despite Grandmaster Yoda warning him to be too old and fearful to start his training. Over the next 10 years, Anakin and Obi-Wan would form a close yet sometimes heated bond, with Anakin feeling that he was stuck with Obi-Wan after Qui-Gon's death, something they both felt resentment towards inwardly. 3 years after the death of Qui-Gon in 29 BBY, when Anakin was 12 years old, he defeated a training droid with the appearance of Darth Maul to impress his peers, and then Palpatine, who was also there and which impressed him, called him for an errand in which Anakin and him would travel down to the underworld, where Palpatine would plant seeds of doubt in the boy's mind regarding the Jedi and Anakin's place as one. This would almost lead to Anakin leaving the Jedi Order, but however, after an urgent mission with Obi-Wan, he decided to stay in the Jedi Order. Another thing that happens around this time period in his life, in Legends at least, is that Yaddle actually died here by trying to save Anakin from something that was going to destroy him on a mission, which is a cool little fact considering how she died completely differently in canon. Also this same year, 29 BBY, Anakin would build his first lightsaber, train under Sin Dralig in lightsaber forms as well as combat, and also Obi-Wan on a journey would show Anakin a dead black dwarf star to make him understand the concept of no attachments, as all things, even this star here, come to pass. It seems this was not a lesson that would resonate with Anakin, though, as in 22 BBY at 19 years old, he would fall in love with the former queen, now senator from Naboo, Padme Amidala, while on a mission to protect her. Count Dooku had been behind assassination attempts on her life, and after an exhilarating speeder chase through the neon cityscape of Coruscant, the planet where Anakin had been situated with the Jedi Council for the last decade, he would be assigned to protect Padme, whilst Obi-Wan would investigate the bounty hunters involved in the assassination attempts. Anakin would become romantically involved with Padme while protecting her until visions of his mother's death would lead him to Tatooine, where he watched his mother Shmi Skywalker die in his arms after being mercilessly beaten to death by Tusken Raiders. He slaughtered them, with this being his first true step into the dark side, perhaps maybe that thing with the Darth Maul training droid we mentioned earlier, and then would go to Geonosis, where he'd try and fail to rescue his master Obi-Wan, currently being held by Count Dooku, before the first battle of the Clone Wars commenced, and Anakin would get his right forearm chopped off by Dooku after a duel with him. Anakin would then marry Padme in secret, and he actually gave C-3PO to her as a wedding gift here, which is a cool little fact that you might not have known about, as she was always with 3PO as her personal servant in the show, so it kind of makes sense. And Anakin also gets a sick cybernetic right appendage here. Moving into the Clone Wars, Anakin would build a second lightsaber, which he'd use for the rest of his time as a Jedi, and also he would serve as one of the most fierce and creative Republic generals alongside his clone captain CT-7567 Rex and his clone legion the 501st in blue armor, as well as a new Jedi Padawan Ahsoka Tano given to him after his knighting ceremony in 22 BBY, who would be at his side until the year 20 BBY, when she would leave after an incident of her being framed for bombing the Jedi Temple wrongfully, which showed her the true harsh nature of the Jedi. Also, Anakin would give his Padawan braid, make something out of it and give it to Padme, and he would get a scar across his right eye after a duel with Ventress, a dark side assassin of Dooku, and would also grow more and more serious and distrustful of the Council as the war progressed, along with the intensity of said war, and the events surrounding it. In 22 BBY, General Grievous would capture Palpatine at Coruscant, leading to a massive battle over the city planet in which Anakin and Obi-Wan would fly aboard the capital ship, the Invisible Hand, fight Count Dooku in a lightsaber fight, with Anakin cutting his head off after disarming him, literally, and then them rescuing the Chancellor, although Grievous would escape. After returning to Coruscant, distrust would plague many of these characters. The Jedi grew distrustful of Palpatine after he appoints Anakin as his personal representative on the Jedi Council, tired of his constant interference with democratic and Jedi practices, as well as Anakin himself would grow distrustful of the Council themselves after they deny him the rank of Master when he's accepted on the Council. The final nail in the coffin, so to speak, would be Anakin's dreams of Padme dying in childbirth, as she had announced herself as pregnant to him, which would lead to Anakin feeling lost. Obi-Wan would leave to Utapau to kill Grievous, and therefore in the Clone Wars, whereas Anakin would talk to Palpatine, who would reveal himself as the Sith Lord the Jedi had been searching for all this time. Mace Windu and 3 other Jedi Masters would go to confront Palpatine after Anakin tells Mace of this news, but Darth Sidious would kill the other 3 Jedi, including Master Kit Fisto, in seconds, before Anakin, having to choose between saving Padme and saving his role as a Jedi, gives in to attachment and fear, and then helps Palpatine kill Mace Windu. Darth Sidious would instate Anakin as his new Sith apprentice, Darth Vader, before Vader would lead Order 66 in the Jedi Temple, killing Jedi and Jedi younglings alike alongside his 501st clones. This would all culminate with Vader also killing the Separatist leaders on Mustafar, officially ending the Clone Wars on both sides, and then also force-choking Padme there, and then having a fight with his master Obi-Wan, sent there to confront his former apprentice over the lava world, until in a fatal mistake, Vader would overestimate his ability, allowing Obi-Wan to cut his remaining 3 limbs off after Vader had jumped over Kenobi, which resulted in Skywalker tumbling down the bank, erupting in flames, and then being burnt alive. He would be saved by Darth Sidious, who would encase him in a cybernetic suit and assure him of Padme's death, who had died in childbirth from sadness, which leads to Darth Vader, once Anakin Skywalker, yelling out in despair. So that is the full story of Anakin's life. Let me know if you'd want me to do a part 2 to this video where I go over more of Darth Vader's side of things. But yeah, see ya.